got you in the chair, pulled you aside.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being
Hey,
here.
great job this morning.
That's sweet of you. Thank you for saying that. That's definitely going to make the cut. We're not
You got to
editing
get
this
that
out.
in there.
First of all, you got a Lego tie.
I mean, come on.
Give me a compliment of my own talk. This is great. Good talk. All right,
Yeah,
guys.
all right,
Thanks for watching the
that's a
podcast.
wrap.
That's all the time
That's
we
a
have.
wrap.
No, I appreciate that. Well, talk to me a little bit about kind of what you're doing here at the conference, sights and sounds, what you're seeing, what you're liking. Give me like a picture from your vantage point.
Yeah, so I was here to speak. I talk about how to make work suck less.
Yeah, great.
through play and positive psychology. So I just literally finished my talk on the 4-day work week, why we need it.
Yes.
And what's been really interesting about all the conversations we had is like, people need time. They need a break.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we never rested after the pandemic.
So
We've just been go, go, go
We're
the whole time.
We're diving into it because I want to get there. And I actually did an episode on the 4-day work weeks, which
you told me about
go back and look at. And I don't know that I dived as deeply into the following, and I'd love to get at it with you.
Yeah.
But we've had these technological innovations, right? So I used to have to physically walk a memo down the hall, and now I can send an email. I used to have to do this, that, and the third. And all it has led to historically up until this point has been, great, let's do more work.
Do more work.
Churn and churn and churn.
Yes.
And I wonder your thoughts on the next big labor alleviator being AI coming in and saying, hey, there's a lot of stuff that used to take you longer that now it takes you. Can we use this as an inflection point to say the 100-year-old Henry Ford idea of how many hours per week you should be cranking away when it's not wrenching on a Model T and it's using your brain?
Yes.
If we hit the same deliverables and maybe even more with AI, can we dial back? And what your thoughts are on using this as an on-ramp to that conversation?
This is interesting. Okay, so let me like nerd out historically, right?
Do it.
So first, Henry Ford didn't come up with a 40-hour work week, right? It was all labor that actually figured it out first and foremost.
Sure.
And then Cave got him to cave, so he finally did it. But John Maynard Keynes back in the 1930s expected us to only work 25 to 30 hours based off the technology at the time. Yeah. The only reason we didn't do that is because people wanted to buy more refrigerators. They wanted to move to the suburbs and get that nice car. And so there was all this pressure to work more.
Interesting.
But he was like, we could be doing less work back then. He now he projected back in the 30s that now in 2030 we should only be working 15 hours based off the technology. So it's the choice is there. Yeah. It's not about whether or not the technology there. It's us. Yeah. It's whether we are okay with not working so much.
Why aren't we?
Because it's America and we like just want to be number one all the time. So we're like, we think more GDP means more happiness when we're like 27th in happiness. Right?
And probably falling from just anecdotally looking around.
I was just saying in my talk, more sometimes is just more. It's not better.
That's right.
And we have to, in my opinion, we should be done with organizations that are success at all costs. Yeah. Because the environment. Yeah. And it's also not sustainable because we've been asked.
Do you mean like the environment or the literal, like
literally the environment and literally also
the figurative environment?
Because people are burnt out.
Yes.
People don't spend enough time with their families. Like they just did the 4-day work week in Spain, and in Valencia they found that people were going less to the hospital and they were closer to their families.
How long did they run that study for,
They ran that study for I think a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then UK did a study with...
I know that one.
That one,
was
61
huge.
companies,
and
56 are still doing it.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. So the data's been there. The data's been there for 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Okay, so you've obviously studied the matter and are happy to make your opinion clear. You think that the 4-day work week is the right path forward for smart employers? For most employers, not every employer. Okay. So if you have bad management, you're not ready. Yeah. Because then you have micromanagers, it's just going to be worse. Yeah. If you don't have clear goals as to why you're doing it, you're not ready. If you're not willing to run trial runs and you just think it's just going to fix everything, you're not ready. But you're talking about things that organizations should have set up, not already, right? But and not industries. Yeah. Right. So you're willing, if the company's got the things that they should already have in place, you're willing to cast this net over a wide variety of industries. Okay. Let's argue for fast food. Why would it be successful? Chick-fil-A is off on Sundays. Yep. Why do they have more revenue than Taco Bell, Dunkin' Donuts, KFC? They only work, they skip a day. And they're making more revenue? How? Quality of work? Yeah.
And people want to go, right? Manufacturing, I was just talking to someone about manufacturing, like, well, we need the assembly line running all the time. You could do that with 4 days. And right now, people are quitting or leaving work early, so you're paying more overtime, which is actually costing you more money than if you walked it.
And let me I don't want to say argue, because we're going to make the same point, but I'm going to amplify the point to say, when we say 4 days, it doesn't even need to be 4 days. What we're actually saying is take the expected weekly hours down to 32. So if you need to run 24/7, run 24/7.
24/7. Just figure out the schedule better.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
We're speaking the language, man. Let's go, dude. We got this.
That's my member from Chicago. We got that handshake on point, dude. That's not even rehearsed offline. Okay. So when we talk about this as a smart thing and that the data is kind of, the jury's out a little bit, right? How do we talk to, or do we just wait till a new generation of leaders come in? Ooh. How do you talk to leadership? How do you change a very entrenched thing?
The way I do it is like, okay, 85% of your workforce is disengaged right now. How's that working out? How's your retention? How's your recruitment?
Yeah.
You're complaining about all these things. Well, what do you want to do? Gen Z is going to be 30% of the workforce in 2030. You ready? You ready for that? Gen Alpha is going to be 10%. Do you want to be an early adopter so that you can be in this, or do you want to be a laggard?
It seemed like you were
and
forced,
basically become
kicking and screaming.
You're going to be the next Sears or Blockbuster. You ready to be Sears or Blockbuster? Like, you're going to get left behind.
The UK study that you referenced that we talked about earlier, some of the employee quotes from that were things like, you couldn't pay me enough to go to a different employer.
Exactly.
And I just look at some of my employer groups and think, what if you can have an employee say, full-chested, you could not pay me enough to work for another employer. Boy, wouldn't you want that level of engagement and retention. And
because they want time.
Yeah, man.
They want, that's what we learned from the pandemic.
Yeah.
People want time.
Yeah.
They don't want to commute 2 hours or 8 years of my life for it. Like, they want, so respect their time. And when you do a 4-day work week, you're also saying this. You're saying, enough with the more, let's do more with less argument. It's in, we're going to have you work less and you're going to get more. You're going to get more productivity, but you'll also get more happiness, more connection, more retention, all these benefits for you as well as for the team.
I think we're probably at a spot where kind of the gig economy, it ain't kind of necessarily paying what it used to, whatever. So there's a lot of folk out there that have been trying to make that side hustle the hustle, that you maybe start becoming that employer with a 4-day work week. There's a whole latent hustle culture out there that'll join your ranks.
Yeah, there's an organization I know in New York that hires specifically actors.
Right.
Because they know they have gigs they got to go to. And because they work around their schedule, they stay for 2, 3, 5 years.
Yeah, and you don't lose all that training and institutional knowledge. And interesting, man. So, obviously the idea here is we're getting lots of people in the booth. I'd love to have you back on. We do deep dive on the podcast, but just, kind of for this sort of highlight reel of folk that this is the kind of quality of content you get at these power conferences, right? You're one of an example of a multitude of awesome speakers, and that's why you come to this. Anything else that you'd like to punch before we kind of get out of this kind of tight little teaser chat?
We are celebrating the wrong leaders. There was a study that found that 1% of the population psychotic, 10% of the CEOs are psychotic. That's the study. That's not bad. You're lying. Look it up. Look it up. But so why are we celebrating this? Like, I'm sorry. Why are we celebrating Lex Luthor? You know who I'm talking about. But like, why are we celebrating that? It's not sustainable. Like, their models just burn people out.
Right.
And I get it. Like if that's a model. So if some people like that model, but we know better. Happier employees have better work. Like, why is that so difficult? So we need to start celebrating more CEOs like the Spanx CEO, who basically, did you know what she did? She
keeps me in my suit. You think this happens on accident, baby?
But when they went public, she gave out first-class tickets to wherever you wanted to fly to and $10,000 bonuses. Right there, you already know where she stands. Why are we not celebrating more CEOs like that? If we do that, it would be so much better.